Hello, dear neighbors. Since I was a little kid, I've been excuse me, I've been observed. My tooth is about to fall out. I've been observing every year of my life. People from other areas have roles, planting evidences, vertically and horizontally too. You have to go backwards and see and discern this. These are people involved with the World Trade Center attack. These are people involved with the use of the word white, black, planting motivations because they have roles with a whole bunch of other countries. That's why those people, how they're used to measure and maintain, left out how the breaching method was involved with that. Therefore, obligations to use criminally foreign influenced slash hyper criminally foreign influenced. I'm not even a lawyer. Nature shows us this regarding how that breaching method assigned black and white to keep the Constitution on a bridge, to keep used to measure and maintain. Definitions of James Madison's identity in words, summaries of him, convictions made by him, not the way he, leaving out how he was extorted, tortured, in fact, human nature enslaved, therefore physically, and had to hide his roles countering it as they actually were. As as our founders with his face and the name chief, because as the value too. The Constitution on a bridge values hyper additional nature greater than this and more finite as itself. Well, not, but anyway, any prey. And then further, that is value in lasting ways that only increase. Campus Marcias calls us north and south and west and east. Do not stay beasts, republic, yet abridged. And then they're told, taught. Vaccine is fought, but by the rules, but they abridged. So, in other words, we're going to convert the suits and ties. Nature will take us out otherwise, through ourselves, because this breaching method uses and has used everyone through ourselves. Suits and ties counters. You allow people to get away with logic. In other words, they're pretending that we can't discern. They're using criminally foreign influence, fact, human nature, quality aspects of nature. They're playing a shell game when people are speaking for white, like in that thing. They're putting fake motivations. Even if they're an agency and they're doing something, even if they're acting, because we're doing research to see what the reactions are if we talk like this about white. The problem when you speak about white or black is you're leaving out the breaching method. You're leaving out how we have black pupils and whites of eyes. See the whites of eyes. That came with cipher as cipher too. We know that our founders did not have freedom, but we have other told through our schools. This is where and how this is motivated. This guy also has rules with contracts apparently, because there are all kinds of ways originally and still where they have criminally foreign influence uses of also forging contracts into databases no one's watching. Then courts are pretending these things are real and or have validity that they don't. Hartford Hospital and hospitals across the country have medical lawyers involved with scams, stealing more thousands of dollars a day than you could believe. Millions other ways. And they're only from Hartford Hospital has an Institute of Living with a bunch of families tied. Each one of them is thousands of dollars stealing from Hartford Hospital, from the people's streets of Hartford, with the houses next to them, the schools too, next to the corners of streets, involved with planting evidences with them. You know how many? You know how many? There are only 350 streets. They're charging like $20,000, $30,000 to fake conversations with people in databases and through the mail. These are former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with them. This was their motivations while being used remotely, criminally foreign influence, hyper criminally foreign influence, Hartford Hospital since before they were born. And the campus of the Institute of Living was founded on this is not real health care. They're stealing from the real health care there. We're going to separate the hospital as an individual body. This is fake health care. I don't have to be a doctor because the judges are also involved with too. They're recorded using those databases to pretend people had conversations with themselves and others. They're planting databases and roles with it, increasingly with the names involved with it. And it's more than a dozen. Then they have family members and neighbors. They also are involved with this. All sides in criminal and civil cases, originally and still. It's not a joke. It only feels positive if all around one way. In other words, nature, thank God, will demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, nature, if the Constitution stays abridged or was. Not that, that's in other words. And our founders left us to communicate about how the Constitution was left abridged. We have experts so we could defend the Constitution. Instead, those experts were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to self value defenses of the names of the sciences abridged. And that's how they, with forgiveness, is because they're also, then they blame the people who have to blame them. Because some would simultaneously recorded to discern the breaching method, you have to discern right where and how. For example, with Jim Crow laws, with the color white, black, they have a shell game with that too, because the people into branch and the intelligence tied to them, they have shell games with their differences. Where they have to speak for the law, but the breaching method measured them incapable of it. They don't even they had others spoken how to do it. And so they put self-value nature of debate, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, sequence shifts, planting, remote criminally foreign influence, uses of all natures of investigations, investigators. In other words, originally still overt criminal enterprises, private ones, names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, uses of insidiousness of identities of logic A through Z. Missing because you have replaced where and how George Washington and our presidents are all about the agreement George Washington had as our president to be someone to try to be chief slash president and president slash chief as a grouping with a portion of the Native Americans, whether they realized or not, while they were fighting for themselves and against themselves syntactically about or just to teach, because it's an imposition on what they can teach about their leave, about the sky, about the waters. The woods are different now. And they are measured and maintained, having been affected by the breaching method this way. Complete remote possession of uses of names. This propagated them as a theater slash hyper theater, where we can put this. This is a new type of theater. But we have to have mandated law followed properly and with care. But the courts can't do that because they were already collusions, and they're all. This is what they do. There's a behavior racketeering worse than war crimes. That's why at the borders, this is what they do. Like at Hartford Hospital, there's a campus. There's an Institute of Living on the campus of Hartford Hospital, and there are different jobs with people of mental health care, and there are hundreds of countries, and they speak about things like culture and color, and they're used to measure and maintain. Everyone's communicating other than our founders communicate about how they had to hide their and why they had to hide their roles and actual motivations, and everyone had to then pretend for other motivations. Led up to it, there was a Declaration of Independence, and the wording the way it was, and there's a constitution, and we're told to get the constitution unabridged. That means we address that breaching method with assigned black and white to communicate other than they do increasingly, and or the difference, and or the nature of debate, or motives. Because you got to all the only motives are it could be this or that, but you guys leave out the foreign motives, let alone the hyper foreign, which is also present. See the hyper extraterritorial and the extraterritorial. And we come to groupings like criminal enterprises, terrorist groups, and we come to names with syntax you are leaving out because you're blaming politicians. You guys are roles using truth as lies. A through Z, otherwise they sense that body, even if that body is a majority black pupils, even if it is a majority of countries. Names A through Z are this breaching method extorted them grouped too. Then they're going to speak for humanity. Get down. More and more, they need to put a costume, speak. You know what I'm saying? It hurts themselves. But there's right there the only means to cause positive value nature, progressions, action natures, criminal insidiousness natures of ones, in collusions with the overt negatives. Every country at A through Z has to speak about nature's telling them to speak about criminal and foreign influences slash hyper criminal foreign influences. But this breaching method knew and effectively maintains the only bodies capable of doing that formally needed to hide how that was all formally you already only capable of blaming other things other themselves. All exception nature, they were used remotely just like that's why they couldn't do it. You have summaries and motivations you can't put on paper regarding how you put all these historical facts. You want to pretend someone knows more than someone else. Leave what came first. James Madison's value before the president. And then when he was the president, still without the quality of fact driven nature necessary to counter the entrenchments of the predicate acts with facts delivery system method black pupils. We are here to seize. Kempis Marcius calls us through the breeze. They totally dried out my mouth. They were going to stab me with a pen with people tied to my neighbors who are patients and criminals, and they run in. And police forms involved with Hartford Hospital. People who, families that work for fire departments, they run in high life progressions because they were used since they were kids to plant evidences, to repeat things that are fake. There are criminally foreign influence uses of hearsay, formally, and people other, and the difference, even when they're not using the return. He said, yeah, they're screening for their roles with foreign bodies. This is relative to where and to how they have motivated actually. So a whole bunch of Connecticut police departments involved with the same house of wire crime and wire crime methods, also with other houses attached to them, and the difference of that. And where and how people make differences between black back and forth. Okay, your side, you say this, you do that, and we'll decide. And the difference of that. These are uses of identities of order. And as identities of order, tactical ulterior from the identity of our order that is, shows us what and how to discern what is order, for how it is five distinct identities of sequence nature. As truth before the order of the order of the finite grouped, progressive. The part we know about the future though, like the seasons. But you guys want to have nature of debate where it's not debatable. Black pupils. Here. Speak for white, don't speak for me. But they get away with it because they have social relationships. They have victims advocates, people involved with the phrases like, what is it called? Domestic, where and how the intelligence community is increasingly rolls with predicate acts with facts while being and having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, roles with all sides in criminal and civil cases, and or the the interbranch names and increasingly overt criminal enterprise privately with the same names and or the intelligence. How long the people with the Central Connecticut State University has roles with people with criminal justice, and they work for the prisons with people involved with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin and people involved with spots of a reported serial killer, even if it was made up. That spot was involved with the names next to it, involved with foreign and domestic military, like with the name Kolvinskis, Violet. One's associated with the name Kololo, um, Tomorrow, Hanson, Coast Guard people, their neighbors, you know, keeping, fabricating finite, grouped, and progressive things to keep the nature of even the uses of these words, including exception, American exceptionalism. I was using that word before it was popularized by people also involved with Facebook and Twitter before they sold it, and with the FBI involved further with more child abuses with digital child offenders and males and female of the intelligence community planting evidences with that, enforcing abuses of children through leaders of kids involved with it, and with other natures of organized crime at the same time, because there are cliques and families, and their sources are who don't have the quality, integrity, of fact, human nature, or time as a certain type of victim slash hyper victim to care for it to be a quality of fact, human nature necessary to overcome where and how to. At each of the campuses I went to, the houses involved with the wire crime acts and methods and switching names of police and on different police reports. They were also stacking evidences on campuses, including medical ones. And their roles were use slash S of that at other locations, including their fake motivations. These are not legitimate roles with military, with Coast Guard, with Koreans, with Italians, with Canadians, Mexicans, Venezuelans, Puerto Rico, people, all these people from England also involved, Weathersfield Police and FBI and other police departments with their names. They pulled them into cities involved with wire crime acts and methods with them and with the courts grouped. So it's necessary that we have Judge Napolitano, for example, because he's calm. And the Fox News judges before he went off, his Facebook page was already involved, used by the intelligence community in ways he doesn't know and couldn't fathom. But it has roles with this. There are also people from Pakistan. It has something to do too. Harvard Hospital has something to do planting evidences with people at the corner of Town Line Drive and South Steen Highway. And the people from my past neighbor has something to do with people involved with untimely deaths and planting evidences at Trinity College and Harvard Hospital and campuses, child campuses with names next to it at businesses and houses and rental ones. And the difference of that, Weathersfield slash Hartford, West Hartford, Bloomfield, and then the exception of having a river next to it. But Hartford was set up before our founders were born by that breaching method, which set it up from here to Ukraine. The suburbs in Russia look just like the suburbs in America that were set up before our founders were born, with slavery entrenched north and south, and with the predicate acts with fax delivery system method that pretends that people are speaking about it because it's about color, to pretend they don't realize they're speaking about it because there's a human fact, human nature breaching method. There are criminal foreign influences slash hyper criminal foreign influences involved with it. There are fake motivations plantings involved with it because there are people still speaking about white and black and pretending fake motivations about it. They're trying to make people mad because that's how they prevent people from having relationships. It's mean to do to a white person to make them pretend you're against people having a relationship with someone white if you're white and you're saying that, and then that's why, in other words, and these are people with black people and their differences. They have sexual groups and encounters to them as collusions with them at shootings and untimely deaths and shootings from cars, uses of nice knives, poisons that the intelligence community has an extent of awareness of. Such they per how increasingly from other locations they are being and haven't been used remotely where they had obligations to speak for the law, for the nature of the law, for the identity of the law. And then further, as its location slash S, you have definitions of order that are psychopath, calm, defenses of themselves. And they are psychopath, aggressive defenses of themselves. If one wants to use anger and aggression, and it's not to be what's true, it's only to leave out finite details or simultaneous things. Search, because there are still mass tactically delusions wrought and criminally foreign influence fact, true nature, quality aspects in nature formally. There are still criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and subject treatments relative. For example, regarding what constitutes a drug that would put someone in jail for so many years. And the difference between that, when they have synthetic drugs, that you smoke this thing, it will knock a man, let alone a little kid, on the ground. Synthetic. Then they wanted the nature of the debate too, used to measure and maintain. If measured and maintained, entertained, it can't be entertained. In America, free at last, ever. American history is still taught. Ancient history is still taught with self-value, criminally foreign influenced, quality aspects of fact treatment nature, summary convictions. There was a summary judgment YouTube channel involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Lusk, and his lawyer, Robert Chevalier, and people next to his lawyer's office who have been planting evidences, also with people on off medical locations, involved with the military, criminally foreign influence. Jonathan Mayano was one of the people who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed on Maple Avenue through time, involved with Hartford Hospital, also with a Joe Aiello and a Joe DeMauro, a DeMauro's Market and Aiello's Kitchen. They're involved with people. I don't know Aiello's Home Services. I asked them if I call them back again, they would say harassment. I only asked them shortly. I said, well, please get me a response. I caught them with a principal child defender, more people tied to them. Mayors are involved. The education department, names next to it. On off the school boards. They have the FBI rolls with this, measured and maintained, worse than criminally incompetent, tactically delusions raw too, with the uses of these shell games with people with the word white and black in their mouth too. You're trying to make it pretend we have differences that aren't there. And or out of sequence, you want to ask questions at courts that are planting evidences on all sides of our houses, intercities. Covington Street, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have people with a Gill family that's been spying on their neighbors. And then there's, in other words, there's a certain type of victim, from off their location This preaching method makes people say, oh, this person said this person says that. They also switch it and they record fake things that way and pretend not to realize. And they're also increasingly measuring and maintain that all the identities leave out how they've been using the right to lie in readings of statutes that give them the right to lie. For example, how they train police forms where they don't have the right to lie. Increasingly, people off the Department of Transportation, Department of Motor Vehicles, involved with names on off two route highway, Hangdog Lane. Increasingly, these are people with the name Dillon, Thomas Dillon, Anthony Dillon, Kevin Dillon. Please get them on paper with the people McGee. There are three different arrests. They offer two different arrests. I don't know if it was three different arrests. I know one time too. There's one at the location at Hartford at Wethersfield Police Department where they're switching names with the name McGee, and they're making threats and demonstrating and lying about their motivations. Because I caught them with child offenders, intercities, and with people with the World Trade Center attack. Hartford courts and the Britain courts were planting evidences with people from Wethersfield and West Hartford at West Hartford locations and with New Britain people who work for WFSB, WTNH, the phone companies, people involved with the differences between police forms and narratives and motives plantings with people at Old Town Cafe is involved with criminally foreign influence uses of identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles, pretended legitimate investigators use remotely criminally foreign influence, planting fake motives for a whole bunch of different countries involved with that place. And their roles with confessions about murder and demonstrations of murder methods and names involved with each other. Then they're involved with all this stuff after the World Trade Center attack. As the people intercities who would, and then in the World Trade Center attack, the name Scalora and people with the name former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. He was in a 2006 district court case that came about after it was proven in the World Trade Center attack context in the Ninth Circuit Court right next to it. There had been post-dating of documents before the World Trade Center attack. And then that was shown that day to the panel of judges. And then we came home from there, and I saw the World Trade Center was attacked, but we were in the court next to it, and we had been the night before in the hotel. And these are people involved with wire crimes and predicate acts on my street with police forms forging and switching names. Additionally to the three who confessed to me and others that they shared the name McGee. These are also men and women with the intelligence community at Rocky Hill campuses, Hartford campuses, and Newington campuses. I assume I meant to say New Britain, and Hartford. Next to there's a campus on the corner of Park Street and New Park Avenue, who has some judges and prosecutors and foreign and domestic military, people involved with overt criminal enterprises, and a Dean Judd and a Dean Alford. A Dean Judd from Central Connecticut State University and a Dean Alford is involved with a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield planting evidence on my street and wire crimes with the names they have involved, as the name Cololo and Scalora and Sullivan. There's also a Daryl Sullivan on Park Street involved with switching names with the name Maggie and planting evidences on off Central Connecticut State University. It might be Secret Services involved, per the confessions of one of them who approached me. I forgot, it was a black man. But these are people also too highly charged, white, and they have KKK Confederate flag themed, and inter and intracultural, highly Italian themed, but their roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and planting fake motivations because they have roles with a whole bunch of different countries It's also not the motives of the money law. The breaching method employed money as one of the things to blame. It's to keep blamed on, where it knew that nature would continually demonstrate to humanity that a breaching method is a scientific value to reason with questions and as answers, as the part of the answer slash S. I taught best. Many ways, boxing. So there's a thing called mandated law. And they try to make people have they're sustaining, not responding, because they've been planting evidences and spreading lies through neighbors with the same ones who did before they were ever even living there on all sides of my house, and they did it against themselves too on all sides of their house, increasingly as roles of people who were in my sixth grade class, and with exceptions that show a line of people influenced to repeat a truth. Like, so if you know something, in other words, they'll tell you that the truth is tactical ulterior than what is actually recorded. In other words, I never tried to contact Ray Reynolds in my life. The intelligence community sought me out with men and women and to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They were using him to plant fake ties and fake natures of ties to me and fake motivations to screen their roles with a whole bunch of different countries relative to this conversation. It's not even debatable. In fact, who would pretend it's debatable that how black and white was assigned by international corruption and a factory nature breaching method, that person is going to have inherent too active, too progressive to their logic, things that we should have known about. But we had the right reason experts, tactically delusions raw, fabricating conversations and changing conversations with people on a mass scale, stealing from little cities like Hartford, Connecticut, the capital of Connecticut, on a mass scale, stealing millions of dollars while they, a month, while they, more than that, demonstrably. And it's just, and there are only 350 streets there. And this breaching method designed this. And it designed it to slowly stay, become 2, 3 family houses. All the means to fix let's go get the tool for 5 cents and fix it. It's a big difference. All the people on top of each other. It's a little bit not wide enough, a little bit unsafe. Oh, but that makes the service. That's how jobs work. You're supposed to not leave out how the jobs and those narratives were employed by the torture, extortion, slavery method, factory nature slavery method of our founders and of our presidents, distinctly, not distinctly, and simultaneously. But that's how nature holds it. Oh, so you guys are preventing people. Then they pretend that it only takes one person to communicate for the whole branch of government. That's one of the reasons that Marbury versus Madison should be valued per the Constitution unabridged and per how we have rights there too innumerable to list. See, but they've been backing you into roles with sides of cases, as the breaching method shows them, a formal law of voices, to entertain themselves, being and having been backed into entertainments of subjects, difference, treatments, tactical ulterior. From what it's, this is there are 5 distinct, different parts of its complete identity. At all parts of itself. This is why and how manifest cell, nucleus, cell, body, cell wall, /S. Appreciation of the gases, appreciation of the water, its elements. This is why how cell atom, or atomic nucleus, neutron, proton grouped, And electron relativity is actually relative. You have words like theory and relativity theory, the phrase, used to measure and maintain for a breaching method that all natures of difference that they still use exactly the way it employed it. So you have not allowed a nature of debate, a nature of honesty, and regarding your motivations for how and why. For the quality of factual nature to be here where it could be on YouTube. Per it not allowed at locations. For how? Relative to it. You're not allowed to be on the news media. Fake motivations for why. On mass scale, they pretend to be against phobias, to be counters to it. See, there are counters. Little Rap Guy and friends have symbolic of people who actually stacked in those buildings that would never have been entertained. Such an identity of the ground, identity of the relationship to itself, and the value of that as humanity's names A through Z, and what could speak for science, what really causes the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures at these locations. This preaching method was sustained here against Native Americans, individually grouped and together. And then our founders were born. Already it was north and south set up sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly, thematically, just like Native Americans, because their difference is measured and maintained like our own. Tactically ulterior. Our system is now tactically ulterior from the hyper-native way. That's what the Native Americans ask for. That's what the Americans A through Z ask for when they're asking right. And when that, but to appear, we have to be led by hyper invisible. Here's when they ask wrong, if they're asking, in other words, if someone's saying, "Oh, it's because they're calling me a name." In other words, but if you're doing that and you're still collusions with the uses of it, which were hyper additional from it, and then staying styles of logic and nature, keeping the nature of debate stupid, fake. We have to stay focused on how it's criminally foreign influenced, tactically delusions wrought. We have to stay focused on how it rolls with the breaching method. We have to stay focused on how we're supposed to address how. Also, Israel as an excuse. They're using it as a truth to lie. And it's also why and how. At countries A through Z, there is no science voice, legitimate speaking. And or, they don't even have to be legitimate. Just deal with the premises. Even if all we need is one voice and don't have it change. Then you can deal with their premises as the people. And you can force those premises treatments. Oh, A, therefore B. Oh, we're messed up. Oh, the next guy. No. A, therefore B. We're going to deal with the finite group. We're going to use the might and power of the species body the way nature will guide us. Because these are systems individually grouped and together. All voicings of themselves formally incapable of defending those voices and affording to be, let alone to protract convictions by what is constant and variable properly. Yeah. Psychiatry has been tactically delusions wrought involved with these wars. They've been stealing more money. Oh, just in Hartford, just that one campus in Hartford, Connecticut. There's only 350 streets about in Hartford. Millions. And it's hardly any amount of people. And they're little fakes. They're putting fake transcripts of people. They're using that way. investigators, criminally foreign influence. They have responses to what people type on Facebook used to measure and maintain their used criminally foreign influence relative to this. It's nothing personal against the campuses too, then they pretend it's personal. UConn has students and has retired and standing people associated with them with Hartford Hospital. And they have an ongoing role with mental health care where they've been roles with names next to it with all natures of predicate acts, all kinds of federal evidences, crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles with planting evidences with the news too. And with child offenders, leaders of the kids, and abuses of their kids for the difference of it used too, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, not legitimately with training, military, or what they're doing with the ones next to Hartford Hospital and next to Trinity College and CCSU, involved with the names, involved with the wire crimes, the Wethersfield police, increasingly with people with the Wethersfield town offices and the community center and all sides of it. It's important to get them on paper to one name in sequence. The judges that have been switching names and roles with their prosecutors and people that the different positions and with victims advocates in their campuses, names with their campuses also involved, increasingly with all natures of tactically juxtaposed distinct natures of organized crime, predicate acts with facts, and assignments of blame and of guilt, and descriptions of other people using their names that are also tactical. In other words, they make people use their names or not and hurt them either way. Where and how they are being haven't been used remotely since their kids have to hide life progressions to have to want to do this. First of all, we have to have forgiveness, but then we have to have forgiveness so speakers can be heard with short words. Otherwise, they change what you say and they get away with it. Well, this is with descriptions of what people say, because they also put whole fake conversations about that. They use the crime method with other countries too, against their own too. There's proofs that they pretend people said that everyone is bad because a whole bunch of people they stack roles, lying about as collusions what happens at crime scenes. So increasingly, there are people with the name McGee involved with people with the name Cololo, with child offenders, leaders of kids, who are also involved with gangs and with judges and prosecutors. They're not legitimately with gangs. These are people. There's a Judge Smith. There's a Judge Killian, and I don't know all the rest of the judges. There are judges with whiting forensics involved with people with the middle school, further recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts with them through time, and planting evidences there. Further, with names next to the schools in Wethersfield, who have been planting evidences with child offenders and with the news, and all sides in criminal and civil cases with the courts. So they're switching names too and preventing writing through time. Again, they're switching names. Their occlusions, predicate acts, methods grouped this way discernible too. This was and is used remotely too, where and how their sources are also manifest with themselves. Uses of black and white and uses of crime methods associated with organized crime bodies associated with, for example, research campuses who have to hide those quality aspects. In other words, their roles planting evidences against people and lie progression is tied to that. And you know how many countries have roles with the overt slash insidious delusions per the nature of um, logic and reason of the psychiatry and the doctors who speak with the networks. Also the ad placements, the names that the companies of the ad placements and with associated with their family members and their lawyers are also roles planting evidences, faked and changed words, and ties between kids and adults, and attaching kids and their family members to fake conversations with themselves and others, and about serious things like organized crime acts and things associated with body dumping spots, per where and how investigators are used remotely, increasingly per people on and off of medical campuses. These are also how they have social things where and how assigned has been unmarked police forms with the differences of the identities of the law, like their cultural or skin tone or sexual differences. They have transsexual places and people associated on off Tucker Carlson's community college, and they have counters to them in collusion with predicate acts on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and corrections offices, with names next to the campuses in Weathersfield and Hartford, connected, and in New Britain, connected, and next to Harvard Hospital too, with overt criminal enterprises, the same ones. A Joe Aiello is not legitimately with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and with the judges and prosecutors planting evidences and fake motivations for it too, regarding him and regarding their roles, with planting evidences on the sides of parks through time, with people involved with predicate acts with him, and fake exceptions of knowing me. I never had a class with him in my life. They planted evidence, made fake things. One time I saw him on the campus of um eh, um what is it? High school of Weathersfield after he graduated. Never had anything to do with him the whole time he graduated after. He has something to do with a Jennifer Ketapicki and a Jonathan Mayano involved interstates. These are people involved with this with the California too. There are proofs that California has mental health that are tactically delusions raw, involved with families that you know they're stealing millions from Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. They're also involved with increasingly as names involved with crime scenes with foreign bodies, but they're leaving that out. They play games where they lie about their motivations too, where they go back and forth and say this person said this person said that, and that's used by foreign bodies involved, used measuring to maintain them, used to hide, left out, and self-value their roles with it. Increasingly, it's people from Korea tied to people planting evidences through little kids too. The intelligence community makes people make statements and pretend. Then when you try to describe that, it makes it look like a conversation where the investigators are planting fake things because the Weathersfield police chief Cintron has lawyers and has people with Russia associated with them. I don't know their names. Some of them are named Peruta, and they're involved planting evidences intercities through time. It has something to do with their roles with the fire departments in NASA and Russia together, and their roles for psychiatry together at Hartford Hospital. They fake transcripts with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. People from Pakistan, people from they have in other words, they also have corners of streets and corners of buildings used per the faked conversations and exceptions. They're using exceptions, exception nature, tactical ulterior from what can be revealed or afforded by anyone understood, and they can't defend themselves at the same time. It's for how they motivated to prevent the Constitution, how we're supposed to get it unabridged from being discerned. So they're jumping into and dishonestly and pretending not to understand people when they say the principal child abusers confessions. I want response for them, and the faked conversations and emails that they pretended to hide how we had our communications over the telephone and how I never got to speak because he kept making confessions and bringing more names and making more confessions, and they also hid what brought it up. Weathersfield High School's school resources have roles with untimely deaths and with intercultural people involved with drugs, with borders people and people on off Trinity College and on off Central Connecticut State University that are supposed to counter that stuff with doctors and prosecutors and judges, but instead they keep that used to hide lie progressions. They keep that to use their roles with the All natures of readings of the law are used, measured, and maintained, leaving out the breaching method, leaving out criminal foreign influences slash hypercriminal foreign influences. I'm not even a lawyer. So, in other words, these are natures of experts who want to get paid for how they memorize about this region, this, and this is the identity of this country. For example, as each of the sciences, the lead up to them is self-valued, criminally foreign influence. And they could see the identity who could discern this coming, which a little kid could. And they pretend it's about defending their identities. They never had a identity to defend. New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts have roles with names with Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College as their sources, who have been using them remotely, while themselves all of them been used remotely. All instances, descriptions, you have been failed. Look around. There are barely any worms in the soil anymore. How many years are you going to keep mowing the lawns? Staying systems, tactical terror, ones that the breaching method set up for the torture, extortion, and fact treatment nature slavery of the three identities of volume as our founders that were still fact treatment nature tortured, extorted, and enslaved. The one as the three volumes of our founders, individually grouped together. Second, as them grouped, as a portion of them, you know, as the native part, as every humanity, and our founder, James Madison. But both native, all Native Americans together, and with our founders, they didn't have free speech. The breaching method was already entrenched. Its employments of values, its employments of syntax by that, its employments of music with that, while they talk about history. If you examine their premises, their fact nature, quality aspects of nature that are being and haven't been used remotely, names A through Z. All we have to do is admit this, and then we could be, unobstructed. You could have that mandated law. In other words, you could let voices do business who aren't going to be criminally foreign influenced. They're stealing from us, but through other people. The agency spots associated like Farmington Avenue and Solomon Street evolved with the intelligence community, with their criminally foreign influence tactically delusions raw. Hartford Courts has roles with deans and prosecutors and judges, with a house at the corner of New Park Avenue and Park Street of Emily or Amy, and she was associated with Eric Burgess, who and former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, before the World Trade Center attack. They had affected me to confessions. I was confirmed and recorded after the attack too. She didn't know that, and the court didn't know that. And what I did to record that true, because there was also people from my town who confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed the same thing, /S, but different ways. They don't know the extent of it. Increasingly, it's something to do with the Mazzucato Bakery too. Increasingly involved with judges and prosecutors who identify theft, fraud, slanders with their family members. Involved with Elm Streets in Weathersfield and Rocky Hill along Route 3, with people who were planting evidences on my campuses behind my back. I had good teachers and leaders that will confess, demonstrate, record, confirm this. They're influenced from off campuses to put fake things in databases. And they will tell you this. All exception nature that appear to be in demonstration or demonstrations, same things. There are educators associated with Heather Hansen, Joe DeMauro, people with the name Mendez. There's an Eric Mendez, and he has a brother who switches names under the guise of cultural, These are people with white in their narrative too, and KKK and black, where they're putting fake motives and identity theft, fraud, slanders, and fake motives for that. With their federal evidence as crimes on a mass scale, where they applied where this breaching method uses their differences, the names of types of experts, identities, the law, where they can't defend that and afford to be, let alone to protract convictions by difference properly. So we have to get these because Ukraine is involved with this. All the countries in the news are involved with this. The readings of the Old Testament, the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, readings of the Quran, all three are tactically delusions wrought. You guys are and unscientific. The beginning of the Old Testament says the only part it wants us to defend where this is right there, where the names of the names of the people of the sciences will come together that way too. In other words, but rather than even know about that, people debate the other parts of it. People want to speak anyway. Then they have money per phenomena. They want to speak and have a nature of debate. Their quality aspects of fact, human nature are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw at countries A through Z. See the suits and ties, counters to them. And exceptions as collusions, one array. Many pray. The colonists could build houses better than we could now, and they didn't have cars, let alone cranes. Maybe they had cranes of some sort, but in other words, it's unbelievable. And the whole ocean, how many years has oil, all kinds of junk gone in there? Why don't we just bring the water above everything? Oh, but you have to do it to be free. You have to be free market. When has been a free market? You guys can't afford free speech. Those who speak for markets, those who speak. You guys are reading the statutes that are left out exceptions. We have the right to speak for the markets. You left the exceptions. Not where you're in the way of people asking to get them on one name and paper. It's because there are women involved with this too. Women intelligence are involved with sick things, planting fake motivations at the same time with overt criminal enterprises and private ones still. And this is sustained. This is how they use that years later too. They keep using it every year. I could show you this recorded. So we're going to begin with that, with the Ray Reynolds and a Harris family is increasingly involved planting planting evidences with all sides with the World Trade Center attack too. These are people involved with shell games with difference, white, black, Latino, Latina, male, female, kid, adult. They record themselves using the word like adult, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Even easier to discern when they speak for black or white and their motives. They can't defend that formally and go on paper. So the FBI has an extent of consciousness they recorded themselves. They are aware they use wire crime acts and methods and mail crime rules self-valued. And they cannot be trusted to have a conversation with them in private. They'll fake things. They fake things. There are proofs that I don't know if the presidents would back me, but I could show this recorded. They've been fabricating evidences. These and criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents. Chiefs, but only ones retired. In other words, or using anger only if it's going to be not leaving out the slightest finite detail, or with simultaneously value, because that's still logic in nature, criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. I'm not even a lawyer, but it's time to delineate their roles, planting evidences, changing what people say, roles with readings of statutes, criminally foreign influence, and how that is exploited, identities of order, definitions other than this one. Like saying it's fun. So sometimes It is your way, even though you don't want to admit it. My way. This way. In other words. Oh, if someone says my way, it's not right. This is proof it's right. It's proof that other leaders, that, in other words, the individual, if they're not a victim forced to entertain or self-value, criminally foreign influence, fact, human nature, quality aspects, nature, convictions, delusions, the locations, areas, and states, individual voices force that because you had assigned other than what you were capable of correlating at each age. You have little tricks with descriptions. Oh, I'm just trying to make this person look good, or oh, because I'm trying to discipline this person. The positive and negative collusions, fake motivation. This measures and maintains incompetence only capable of speaking. Speaking. Pick one name in sequence for the branches of government. When they say pretend they don't understand us, they say, oh, you're talking God. Obviously, they learned somewhere. Like it's like they take a class on how to just pretend not to understand, change what they say. Anyone could do that. Morons. Get on paper, one name in sequence, and stop putting me and everyone around me to fake words since I was a kid. Fear God. On paper. And then we're going to go to the next class because campus too. They repeated the name to me. So I know they repeated my name to him, whoever that is. And there's more than one of them with that name, Michael Greco. I don't know them. No, but if he was my kid when I was my class was in first grade. That class I went for 1 year after that, and there were houses next to it involved with wire crimes with the Wethersfield police with the names on my street and from that area through time. All sides of the campuses, there have been people involved with predicate acts with people with this name Dylan, planting fake motivations too, looking for means to describe instances, create an instance so they can hide what I caught them doing with the courts and the executive branch grouped also with the political branch. So follow the law for your branch of government, please. Don't hold us honest. They put the WFSB attached me to fake conversations with them, fake locations with them about the World Trade Center attack, where and how that was also simultaneously confessed and demonstrated roles and confirmed roles with untimely deaths and people playing off campuses and an untimely death on Trinity College, even if they made it up and the same names are involved with planting evidences that with names and uses of locations that were involved with shootings, murders, and uses of them, like of Greg Kyler and people associated with the probation officer of um, Mike Oliver, who was one of the ones that Dean Alford, who demonstrated at Dean Alford in spots next to Trinity College, involved planting evidences. They have the former director of FBI Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, their lawyer, involved with names next to Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College. Also with Joe Aiello is on Facebook and involved with the courts, he'd been lying to people. He'd been planting evidences, roles with people associated with judges and prosecutors associated with conversations apparently with before he died, a Johnny Duke, the dinosaur of boxing, involved with judges and prosecutors and people on my street involved with wire crimes, the Wethersfield police, planting evidences everywhere I went, increasingly doing this. They're lying about, they have fake conversations with me about such too, with people associated with them. Then they make confessions, then they switch police chief. What? But still, I need a response. What are their confessions about this Leahy family too? Let's get them on. Let's get the rest of their confessions for Mr. Leahy on paper and his other Leahy and the women in their family. They brought up little girls with threats to me, and I didn't have any conversations about the little girls. and they're attaching me to fake conversations with my family members. I want them to keep my family members out of their sick minds. And we have to get their names because there are a whole bunch of men and women with the name Lombardo and Leahy involved with drugs and medicines crimes, people with the name Tomorrow and Violet involved with sexual crimes with kids. Well, we're not legitimate with military, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, people next to body dumping spots and shipping spots like UPS involved, people out the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices, increasingly planting evidences with kids that I didn't have classes with in other classrooms, and roles with uses of words like class, because you have none. Here it's begun. So please, for Fox News, because this is since you were with Fox News, Judge Napolitano, your Facebook page has rolled with the people within the Britain Superior Court involved with this principal child abuser, the principal being associated with obscure pictures. There are more of them on Twitter since that still involved. Other natures of pictures of the kids involved with other natures of organized crime, including further pictures of a Leahy family's kid on Facebook involved in the ownership. There are in their families and people tied to the Facebook leadership that are some ways criminally foreign influence their way and roles with the evidences planting with child offenders. In some ways, it's the Connecticut interbranch, interstates. These are people with federal agencies too. Former Director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants as the ones who timed increasingly roles with overt criminal enterprises, lying timed collusions, attached me fake ties, nature ties, and locations on campuses with people I was never even around on campuses. They make fake instance exceptions to make where they keep things going, where they ask questions, criminally foreign influence, and make confessions and demonstrations that way, confirmations, because they have roles with extortions, torture, slavery method, where and how it is also a part of the answer to black people's A through Z, Americans A through Z, where and how they could still be motivated to blame other things, others, ourselves for for what really caused Jim Crow laws, let alone slavery. And I know this. It's not because they care about someone if they did homework or not. You're out of your minds. Follow mandate law for your branch of government. Follow mandate law for the news. Please do what's right. News. The intelligence community recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that they can't be honest about what I spoke clear and or what is unclear regarding the descriptions like below this video. And this is relative to where and to how they've been planting evidences on and off crime scenes through the news and with the difference of their family members involved, their sources, their roles with the courts sources, their roles with the people associated with scams with the courts, like Trantolo and Trantolo. These are also medical offenders of elderly and